What would you and your celebrity crush gossip about? That's today's question. Hi, I'm Sunny, and I have 4 piles you may choose from left to right, pile 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So if you need more time, you're more than welcome to pause the video and then select the pile when you are ready. Otherwise, I will go ahead and start with the first pile. So for you guys have the 4 of Wands upright. So what would you and your celebrity crush, sorry, I'm trying to center. What would you and your celebrity crush gossip about? I think this pile would gossip about where they're from. So whether I think they might be interested in where you're from or where you're at. If you hear my voice cracking, I'm sorry, my throat's scratchy. So I do think they're either showing interest because it's always like it's a place where they've always been interested in I can't even say it, geographically. And it could be the other way too, where you're like, well, how many places have you visited? Because it feels like you're someone that's a little bit more well off with their finances. Therefore, they get to actually travel, or they get to kind of work. They travel because of work. So you're interested to know, like, how are the I feel it, sorry. So sorry. They basically pick up on the fact that you pick up on the fact that they know a thing or two about other places, right? So you're intrigued. I think you're fascinated with places because I think you have a certain affinity for like beautiful locations, maybe, or you just imagine them being someone that's like very well spoken, close. But I think just the dynamics of like, where have you been, and then where have you been, and how is your family unit like? Maybe they're also interested in the fact that you live a very particular way. Maybe you're like, example, like the people that live in like mini houses. I think there's a word for that. Small living. But imagine you like being the person who has like that cute little like mini house. I can't think of the word. That there should be a word, but I don't know if I'm saying the right one. And they're like, well, how is that working out? Like it's really cool that you get to have like extra finances to like do anything else that you want to do, but is it like claustrophobic for you, or like they find it amusing? Or you could be the person who does that back too, and you're like, wow, like you live in a mansion, like that's crazy. How is that how is like the maintenance of it? Or like, just, is it like every room is always filled up? You're kind of interested in how you both live, or like who you live with too. Maybe how you live with the family, or they live with the family too. And you're interested in those dynamics and like the places of living. Just very Cancerian, I feel. And you're both interested in that because maybe, I think at some point you guys could see, like, if of course you had the finances, like, you know, one day I'd like to try to live like that, or I will try to like experience that myself to see if that's the kind of lifestyle that it's for me, you know. So like I think you guys would be both intrigued by your family experiences, by who's living with you, by your road trips, or like family trips maybe too, but for vacationing. But I think just the way how close your family is to each other, like just that home environment's important for you both. And that's more or less where the gossip would be about. It's just not so much like superficial, but much more heartfelt stuff that's like important for you guys. I think the value system's important, your foundations, your stability, which is obviously in the family section or just the home section. And maybe it's like one of those things that you guys bond over. I don't even feel like it's gossip like to be malicious or anything like that. It feels more like, oh my god, me too, like, yeah, I do that too, like that's crazy, who would have thought? Like it's very familiar, like that familiarity of like maybe you guys grew up the same way and you're like, oh yeah, I did that too. Like that's how you bond over. It's that like reminiscing feeling of like thinking of the past. Maybe you guys could have the same background too, and that's how you relate. So that's what I have for you, pile number 1. Next, pile number 2, you guys have the 4 of Cups reversed. So pile number 2, what would you guys bond over? I think you guys would bond over the fact that you guys really, why am I give me a second, my throat's being terrible. Sorry, I thought drinking some water would help. I think it did. So for pile number 2, I think you guys put yourselves first. in the way where you guys are in a healing journey, maybe, or maybe like you've had people kind of walk over you, or just always be like controlling, maybe. So maybe that's why you finally realize, like, finally it's time to just focus on me and just like think about stuff that I want to do, what makes me happy, what's going to be something that like, what's going to be something that I can do on my private time that's just going to be focused on me. So maybe you guys bond over the fact that you guys love privately doing something creative. So like, example, you guys like to let's see, what could you guys like, I'm trying to get a good example of how this could be, because it feels more like it's a motion thing. So maybe you guys like to cook in the kitchen, right? And you like to cook a certain way, and you're like, I'm trying to time myself, like within an hour, how many plates can I like put myself, not like speed running, but how much can I do and how much can I not stress about. Like, you're just putting yourself in that space of like wanting to just compete with yourself, of like, before I couldn't do this, but now I can, and I have a fascination for it, and it makes me happy. Cooking for myself makes me happy, or just stuff that you maybe experiment with, like recipes, for example. And this is just one example of how that can be. And you guys relate with that, like, oh yeah, like on my private time, I like doing this too. Like, have you tried this technique, or have you tried this set of like tools, like knives and stuff, or have you tried this like organic item? And you guys start like sharing recipes, for example, or sharing techniques, and you guys bond over that. It just feels like you guys doing that thing that you do on your private time that makes you happy is something you bond over and you gossip about. And other people wouldn't notice. Like, if you gossip with each other, it's something that you guys kind of gossip away from eyes, like away from people, public eyes, maybe like in a more private setting. You're sorry, in the eyes, in the privacy setting of like a home, or like a setting where maybe you just ran it like into each other. You're like, oh yeah, like I did that too. Like, they're probably doing an errand by themselves, and they notice that, you know, you're there, and you're like, oh hi, I'm a big fan, and you start talking. Like, it just feels like that, where it's very mellow, private. It might take you some time to open up a bit, and same with this other person. I think overall they might be on guard on guard with their feelings a bit, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't like be polite. I think that once they get to know you, and like how you communicate kind of lets them know intuitively, like, oh, I can trust this person, like this person's cool. So they're cool with you in that way, where it's like, oh, okay, got it. So they might talk to you about that, or they might talk to you about how they're also on a self-love healing journey. Maybe you guys are, I don't know why I wanted to say that, but you guys are in this healing journey with what's it called, healing journey with food, for example. You both can relate to that because of previous experiences that you might have not had the healthiest interactions with food growing up, and now you're fixing that. You're kind of reevaluating stuff, and you're coming into a much more self-loving place with your body and your mindset and how you relate to food, and you don't stress about it. So that's how you guys relate in that way. It's like, oh, I confide in you and you confide in me, and where it's like supportive. Like, it feels good. It feels like it's feeding the soul, where it's like, I get it. I get why you're doing this. It's an important journey you have to go. And I think maybe it's a private thing that you guys don't talk about but easily, but somehow you picked up on that from each other. So it does feel nice on this. It really does. So it's cute. But it's an example, right? It doesn't mean it's for everybody. But do take where it resonates, pile number 2. So next, pile number 3. Pile number 3, you guys have the 5 of Wands upright. So how would you, what would you and your celebrity crush gossip about? Fighting. Your fighting spirit, your competitive spirit, your nature. I think you guys can also like, similarly to pile number 2, pick that up intuitively, where you know that this person's a little spunky or like spicy. they pick that up, like, oh, this person has a fighting spirit. They're go-getters, they're goal achievers, and they're ambitious. And I don't think you stop at nothing. I don't think you allow people to kind of get in your way, and so does this person. I think that's something you guys have common goals, common ambitions of like, once I put my mind into something, I go for it. Very tunnel vision. I do think that you guys enjoy that feeling of competition because you want to be like, okay, I wanted to think of the Pokemon one. You want to be the very best that no one's ever. Sorry. Anyways, yeah, I do think that overall they can relate to you in that way, and you relate to them, even though it could be very different lives, because I do think it might not be the same problems, but I do think that the same goal at the end is very similar, where it's like you want to be top dog, so you're like up in the hierarchy. Basically, you want to be the winner, you want to be the one who gets it. So I think you could relate to that, or you could relate to the fact that everyone's always going against you, and you're not, like, you're always fighting people. It's like, no, I think you're wrong, like whatever with you, like I'm just gonna go whatever, and people continue to like lash at you, and like maybe you relate, maybe this person relates to. It's like, I think media is always like lashing out at me, and they just come at me, or fans come at me and they critique me and they leave hateful messages, like, and you relate, you're like, I have haters too. It could be like that. Oh, my throat, I'm so sorry. Let me take a sip of water, pound number 3. Excuse the noises, by the way. So I do think that you guys relate to that, where it's like you people have this like way of handling your adversaries, and I think you enjoy it. It's like, it's thrilling for you, it's energetic, it makes you feel alive, it makes you feel like people come at you and you just like push them away, you put them in their place. It makes you feel like you have power, it feels like you have stamina for it. And sometimes it can be tiresome because you don't know who you should really trust, but they understand that feeling that if you want something, you're gonna go get it regardless of who comes at you. So overall, this pile feels nice. I feel like that's something that they relate to, and that's possibly what they kind of gossip about with you. Or maybe their fiery temper, maybe they themselves throw a lot of F-bombs with people, and you do too, and then you're just exchanging communication on like who comes up with the better insults or more unique insults, or maybe the more very specific original kind of insults. Like sometimes that can be it, like harsher words, or maybe you're comparing each other, like, well, I say this in this language, and like, oh, I say this in this language, like that's so cool. Like you guys are teaching each other very bad habits, with convenient habits when it's useful, of course, considering your personalities. So very fiery tempers here. So thank you, pile number 3. Next is pile number 4. Pile number 4, you guys have the 6 of Wands reversed. So, pile number 4, what would you and your celebrity crush gossip about? I think you guys would gossip about the fact that you don't feel like you're very seen in this moment. I think maybe you feel like your efforts that you've been putting out, or like whatever you've been energetically investing yourself a lot in, has not given you the fruits that you really thought you were going to get. So, they relate. You guys relate. Sorry. I've been apologizing to every pile about my throat, so I apologize if it gets annoying. But for this pile, I feel that your celebrity crush might feel that they haven't had the best roles. For example, they haven't had the best time writing, or they haven't had the best time touring. Like they've really struggled to kind of maybe be seen. Like maybe they're outshined, right? I think that's the right word, outshined by somebody else if they're working in a group setting, or they have a comrade and the comrade's doing better, for example. It could be like that, and maybe they might feel a little bit forgotten, unseen, like disappointed that they just didn't get that recognition, or maybe the public hasn't seen. It just feels more like a public, like maybe because they've been kind of isolating themselves and like cocooning themselves into like working into a specific creativity endeavor. I think that maybe that's where it goes kind of not sour, but it just feels like they put that stagnancy on themselves to where people have not seen them for a while, so they didn't necessarily forget about them, they just haven't thought about something relevant in regards to them. They haven't started any like drama or anything like that. So maybe that's where they're like, but there's nothing, like I'm not really that kind of person right now, like, or I'm just not focusing on that, like I'm focusing more on like my achievements, or like my grind. And maybe that's something you relate to. sorry. But maybe that's something you relate to in terms of knowing what it's like to work hard and not get what you want. Like, you don't get that promotion, or you don't get that, like, applause. applause. I can never say that right. Applause. Applause. Yeah. Maybe it's like that, where you're like wanting, or you want to hear people tell you, great job, or like hand clap at you. Or maybe you just wanted to feel people like smile at you and tell you like you did great, or you're amazing, or wow, like you really put yourself out there, or you really did this great, like I'm proud of you. Like, you wanted to hear that and you just don't hear it. And they relate. So maybe it might not be at the same scale, but you relate for it at basically the same objection or objective. There you go. So then maybe you guys have that same objective of wanting to be recognized and seen for stuff that you've done, and you don't get it because it's not your time to shine, or it's somebody else's time to shine. Or maybe you just didn't do that much compared to somebody else, that you, like, your influence didn't really influence many people the way you thought it would. So you're bonding and gossiping over the fact that maybe things didn't work out, but like you're still gossiping in that way of like being pouty. Like, you guys are a little bit pouty, and like you relate. So it's comforting to like be, what's that saying? Misery loves company. But it's not that you're super miserable, it just feels like you're disappointed. So that disappointment kind of brings you together, and like birds of a feather flock together. So maybe that's why you guys feel like you're very seen by each other. Like, I think that's something that you guys notice, like you guys can relate to being seen in that way of recognizing that's the problem. I feel that too. Thank you for acknowledging it. Thank you for supporting it. Like, that's just something that they just this acknowledgement of acknowledging that that's the problem, the issue, is more than comforting. But it would be nice to have many people like be like, yeah, you're totally right, kind of thing. But again, take this with a grain of salt. This is just something that you guys would possibly gossip over for the conversation that you guys have for the most part. So thank you, pal number 4, and everybody else. I'll see you in a different video. So please like, subscribe, comment, and share. It helps me out with my algorithm, and I'll see you soon. So bye, everybody.